Hello, Dave here again, and welcome back to this series where we're learning the basics of music theory easily, step by step. This is lesson number 4, and in this lesson we're going to be looking at intervals. There is a book that accompanies this lesson series, so please check out the link in the description box below. An interval is the distance or difference between two notes. As we covered in the first episode, the chromatic scale moves in halftones or semitones. As we move through the semitones away from a particular note, which we're going to call our root note, each of the semitones has a different name as it moves further away from the root note, and these are what we call our intervals. But in the next session, we're actually going to start building some chords. And knowing about intervals is how we define what notes are used within a chord. Knowing about these intervals can help you make sense of these strange chord names that you come across when you're learning songs. I'm going to go through all the intervals in a moment. Now, the examples I'm giving are all going to be from a root note of C. So that just means that the C is our center point. That's what we're basing all of our intervals from. I'm going to go over 12 intervals here, and these are to represent each of the 12 notes of the chromatic scale. So that's going to be how each of these 12 notes relate to the root note of C as they move in semitones further away from C. Okay, so I've grabbed my guitar now, and I'm just going to use this to play the C note, and then I'm going to go up a semitone each time so you can hear how the different intervals sound in relation to the root note of C. It doesn't matter that you can't actually see what my fingers are doing. I'm literally just playing one note to another note. It's nothing you really need to see what I'm doing. So first of all, I'm just going to touch upon what we call unison. Now, a unison isn't strictly speaking an interval that we need to go through, but it's something that comes up on guitar quite a bit. So basically, a unison is just where you play one note on one string, and then you play another note on another string, but it's the exact same note in the same octave and same register. So for example, I could play C here, and it's the exact same register and same octave as this C that I played on a different string. We play those two together, and they're a unison. The only reason I mention it is because on guitar we have these things we do called unison bends. It's where we play one note on one string, another note on another string, and then we bend up one of those notes so it matches the other one, and that's called a unison bend. They're really popular on guitar, so I thought I'd just quickly mention that so you know what a unison is and where that term comes from. But we're going to move on to the actual intervals now. The first interval we're going to look at is called a minor second, and this is just one semitone distance from the root note. So the root note C to C sharp or D flat, and that is a minor second. It's got kind of the Jaws theme kind of sound. The next interval we'll look at is called a major second, and this is going to be two semitones from the root note. So C, our root note, to D is a major second. Now we're going to go up three semitones. So C note, three semitones up is to an E flat or D sharp, you could call it, and that is a minor third. Next, we're going to go up four semitones, so that's going to be from C to the note E, and this is called a major third. Now we're going to go up five semitones, and this is called a perfect fourth. So five semitones will be C to F. Now we're going to go up six semitones from the root note, so the root note C. Up six semitones takes us to F sharp or G flat. And those two together. And that interval has two different names. You can either call it a diminished fifth, or you can call it a tritone. A bit like The Simpsons, start of The Simpsons, isn't it? Now we're going to go up seven semitones from the root. So seven semitones, so C onto G. And that is what we call a perfect fifth. Now we're going to go up eight semitones from the root, so the root note C. Eight semitones up takes us to G sharp or A flat. And this interval can be called a minor sixth interval, but I have heard this called a sharp five a lot as well. So I think you can refer to it as both, but it's generally considered to be a minor sixth. 9 semitones from the root note, so that's C. Go up 9 semitones takes you to A. And that is going to be our major sixth interval. 10 semitones from the root, so the root note C. And we're going up 10 semitones, which takes us to, you can call it A sharp, or you can call it B flat. And that is called a minor seventh interval. Just 2 more intervals to go. So we're on 11 semitones from the root note, and this is going to be C, the root note, to the note B, and that is called a major seventh interval. The final interval, so this is 12 semitones from our root note, so C, go up 12 semitones, takes us to the note C, and that's what we call an octave, so it's the exact same note, just played 1 octave higher. We can technically carry on these intervals now, and we could move on to things like ninths and 11ths and 13ths. But at the moment, we don't really need to know those. We haven't started with our first chords yet, but it's still useful to know that we can then go into the next octave, and this is where we get what we call extended intervals, and that is why we sometimes come across chords such as 9th chords, or 11th chords, or 13th chords. There you have your intervals. Next lesson, we're going to go into making chords out of the scales that we've made already, and we're going to use these intervals to determine what those chords are. Thanks very much for joining me in this lesson. Give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell notification icon. If you want to check out the book that accompanies this series, just go to the link in the description box below, and I'll see you in the next lesson.